You just click off audit.
Hello, welcome to Urban Toronto Beekeepers Association, June 2023 monthly meeting. We're gonna open with Beekeeping Calendar by Marion Whittam.
Thank you, Elaine. Can you please open sharing? Host disabled participant screen sharing.
Yeah, just give me a second.
Okay.
All right, you should be able to share now.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. I'm Marion Whittam, the interim vice chair of UTBA. And just a little background history from me. I have been a member of the UTBA for the last 8 years, and I'm a member of the OBA also. I previously had taught the Be Educated section of the UTBA meeting, but now I've moved on to the Beekeeper Calendar, which gives you the highlights of each month, and remembering that every situation is unique, and that as a beekeeper, you kind of have to do your own self-assessment. This is more of just a guide for you. So the first thing I'm going to do is do the land acknowledgement. And this is the land acknowledgement for the City of Toronto. And I'd like us to take just time to acknowledge the land. It has been a site of human activity for thousands of years. Toronto is still the home of many Indigenous people across Turtle Island, the ancestry name for this land. We are grateful to be able to live and work on this land, and I encourage you to learn more about Indigenous history and the history of the land on where your bees, your apiaries are located. This is the Beekeeper's Calendar. So my agenda this evening, I'm offering you a lot of references and resources. We're not going to have any meetings during the summer, although I'm going to talk about a couple of special events at the end of my presentation. Tips, there's a lot of people picking up nukes now. Some have picked them up, some are going to do it soon. Just some tips for picking up nukes. Stress the importance of regular hive inspections and mite monitoring and record keeping. And we're going to see some of those in one of the special events coming up shortly. Observations to make during those hive inspections, and how does your hive really look and how does it smell? And some OMAFRA resources for AFB, American foul brood and European foul brood and other diseases, as well as treatments and mite monitoring. We need to be bear ready. I'm going to show you what happened to my hives several years ago. I have bear fences around all of them now and have successfully been able to keep the bears away. I'll talk about the value of a mentor for a new beekeeper and networking for all beekeepers. How to prepare for honey extraction, just very high level, including learning about the moisture content in honey and how to properly label the jars according to the Ministry's requirements. Preparing for winter, believe it or not, and talking about ticks and preventing Lyme disease. And then just a lot of information about a couple of special events that we're going to be having shortly. So the resources I have tonight are from the Ontario Beekeepers Association, fabulous YouTube videos on monitoring varroa mites. And at our special event, we're going to do a sampling on that. Also, all kinds of things, all kinds of journal references about the complexity of bee health, about why good queens really matter, and the challenges of for your queen, and also treatment thresholds for varroa. And just to let you know that this particular meeting is being recorded, so it will go to our YouTube channel and all of these references will be available for you. Other references about OMAFRAs, how to inspect bees, how to do the varroa sampling, a very good pictographs and so on that, and requirements for Ontario honey, all important. And also, if you're going to be selling it for retail, there's an actual Government of Canada history labeling, and that's not at farmers markets. That's more in the retail industry. Just to let you know too, that to help you through the summer, if you are on Instagram, that the OBA Tech Transfer Center usually has weekly bee yard lessons and tips, and they are great. The University of Guelph's honeybee research talks about moisture. It's in their various topics there. Bee culture talks about some refractory, all you need to know. And there's Bee Culture also has some bee podcasts, which are quite good. Also, resources from the Honeybee Research Center. The University of Guelph has YouTube videos and other resources for beekeepers. There's over 80 of them now. And some hard copy, Dewey Cairns, Honeybee Biology, Stories Keeping Bees, and our tech transfer manuals for integrated pest management and other valuable resources. So if you are picking up nukes, or you may have picked up nukes, you have to listen to what your nuke supplier instructions are and try and follow them. If you're given a pickup time, then adhere to it, because when nukes are being distributed, especially a large amount of them, the nuke supplier is always being busy. When you're transporting your nukes, it's best to make sure they're level in your car and traveling in the direction that you are driving, versus that'll help avoid tipping. Never leave your nukes in a hot car. These small colonies cannot thermoregulate as fully as a full colony and can easily overheat. Just bring your bee protection gear in just in case something happens. Hopefully you're not going to need it. And when you're home, you don't need to install your nukes right away, but they should be put somewhere where it's cool and protected, like a shed or shady area. And then ideally install them later that day or the next day. So June is really an important month to do inspections. And we need to inspect your hives, I would say regularly, every couple of weeks, looking at the brood frames to see how they're doing, and prevent disease by making sure that if you have more than one apiary, that you do kind of scorch your equipment, go between apiaries, because you don't want to spread any disease. Some of the observations you can have is, does your brood look really healthy? How is it? Is the queen laying well? Are there something called laying workers, where there's an absence of the queen? I've had that happen once for our colonies. And monitoring mite levels, very, very important. And recording all of your observations for each of your hives so that you can go back and compare what's happened and have some records. So you should know the signs of AFB, American foul brood. It does have a very distinct odor of like old socks and all other kinds of, different kind of rubbery, gooey, that kind of look to it. Something's not right. And Amafra has a fabulous write-up on American foul brood. And the other thing is, you may have seen from Amafra and through Amafra about a week and a half ago, the Animal Health Coalition had sent out a bulletin about European foul brood and how it's been seen a bit more than it has been. It's always been around, but it seems to be coming up a little bit more. And so both American foul brood and European foul brood, with American foul brood, you're supposed to call the bee inspector to come and look at your hives and give you the decision. If it's American foul brood, then the hives have to be destroyed and burned. If the European foul brood, you can look at the Amafra signs and symptoms of that. It's more of a sour smelling. Interestingly enough, there is a European foul brood test, which is inexpensive. And you can get that through Amazon and do a quick test to see if it really is European foul brood. Amazon can deliver those in a day or so. And then if it is European foul brood, then you need to call the bee inspector. They will come take a look at your hives and give you a recommendation of what, an order of what needs to be done. And that would be burning the frames. So that are affected and other sort of things that you need to do. So I'd also encourage you to take a look at that particular AMAFRA bulletin. And then also there's an excellent OBA one on how you monitor mites, and it's a great comparison of all of how the process is done. So in June also you have to assess the risk of bear attacks, and here in this Ellen is my bear attack. I know that you had one. And it's interesting, our bear attack many years ago was in 2014. It came in July, and you can see again that this was banded with these truck straps. They didn't get into that so much. They didn't do any damage to this. They did take some frames out. But what we found that bears did is they weren't so interested in the honey. They were more interested in the larvae for protein. And when the bee inspector came and we had a talk, and he said, "Oh yes, you definitely had a bear attack." That's what he was saying, that really they like honey, and Winnie the Pooh loves honey, but it's really the larvae they're looking for. So we installed bear fences, solar bear fences. Fortunately, so far, well, we had another mini attack. We did have another mini attack a couple years ago in one of the remote yards in 2020. But this was the one that was right actually behind our cottage at that point. So these are some friends of ours that are really doing some inspections very thoroughly, looking for varroa mites and looking at the bees. And I can't stress enough that new beekeepers and experienced beekeepers really should, for new beekeepers, get yourself a mentor. They can be so valuable to you. And you can, if with the experienced beekeeper, networking is really important. And you can learn all kinds of things, you know, how to manage, preventing and managing swarms. We're going to be talking about some cutouts tonight. Techniques for catching swarms, how to split hives, when to add supers, pest recognition, small hive beetle, wax moth. Hopefully you don't see any small hive beetle. You may see some wax moth. It can be around on the bottom boards. Techniques to discourage bear attacks, and mite monitoring. In July, again, you have to really observe those hives. There's quite a bit of growth. Monitoring your mites. Remember, when you have a lot of bees, you're going to have a lot of mites. You can add supers as necessary. Prepare for your honey extraction. Start cleaning up your equipment. Familiarize yourself with the grade container labeling requirements for the AMAFRA. Learn about the importance of correct moisture content for your honey. You do not want to have your honey too much percentage of moisture, because what will happen is it'll ferment. So there is an ideal range using the refractometer to be able to make sure that your honey will not ferment. And consider purchasing one of them. They're relatively inexpensive. And again, August is inspecting your hives, adding your supers, start to extract your honey, depending on whether you want to have goldenrod honey or not. Some people don't. Some people get it out right away before goldenrod. And to make sure when you do extract that 70 to 90 pounds for an 8 to 10 frames is left. Freeze your frames after you've done your extraction for a couple of days to make sure that you kill the wax moth. Monitor your mites after your extractions. Remembering, again, lots of bees, lots of mites. Treat appropriately. start your winter presentation preparation in August. Consider combining hives if they're weak, and also assess the weights roughly after you've taken the honey off, and consider requeening late in any of those weak hives in August. Just a reminder that Lyme disease is around. The ticks are around. They're in my bee yard. You have to make sure that you inspect yourself after you do your bee yard work. And there's a great e-tick application that if you do find one, you can figure out what kind of tick it is, whether it's for Lyme disease or not. Lots more resources for that. And just about our special features. We're going to have a field day and picnic lunch hosted by Lynn, Northumberland Bees, at Dixie Orchards, and there's the address for it. Guests are welcome, and please bring your own chairs and drinks. This is going to be on June 25th, and there's also going to be a one, sorry, going to go backwards one. June 25th, sorry. Sorry about that. Just going back to slideshow.
One more.
Yep. Oh, sorry. So back again, it's June 25th. It's a Sunday. Up in Caledon. You can park your car, meet and greet, walk to the apiary, learn about the orchard, the apiary, and Northumberland bees. Inspect a full-size colony, including a mite, wash, and a meeting nook. Lunch with questions and networking. Lunch is free for members and $10 for non-members. RSVP by June 21st to our chair, Michelle. And please let us know if you're how you're planning to get there. You're going to drive, if you need a ride. Please also include if you're going to carpool, and Tom Nolan will be hosting the next field day on Saturday, July 8th in Scarborough. Details to follow. Sorry, just you can download the Beekeepers Calendar from our website, and please feel free to do so. Be healthy and stay safe during the summer, and see you in September. Thank you.
Thank you, Marion.
Okay.
All right, so for the apiary of the month, we have Sheila Miller. I'll try to make you a host. Sheila, are you still logged in?
I am. Yeah, I'm here. That's Sheila Miller. That's not. You're mistaken.
Okay, let me see. How do I make you?
Yeah, that's true. You don't need to make me host. Just sharing. Upper left-hand corner of your screen.
Oh, yeah, no.
Way up in the upper left.
Usually in the ribbon if you're host, like next to.
Oh, really?
Yeah, should be right on the bottom of the shield.
It's also part of the screen share menu.
Okay.
So screen share advance, allow screen sharing for all participants.
Oh, nice. Hit that guy then.
Sorry, where would I find the option?
If you go into screen share, there's a little arrow on the right-hand side, not the big one, but other one, and then it'll say screen share advanced, allow screen sharing for all participants.
I am in the advanced option for screen share.
It's one of the options of the advanced.
Limit your screen to 10 frames, show border, use TCP, screen capture, use having acceleration. Mhm.
It's like where they've done research.
You also make her a co-host.
Yeah, or make her a co-host and that'll work too.
How would I do?
Under
that?
participants,
Yeah,
Click on her, the 3 dots where her square is, I think, and then you can,
I have the only one option. It's called PIN pin.
oh, not that one.
I
That'll just make her big on your screen.
I believe you.
you'll go under participants, and then when you click on the participants, it will show you a list of all the participants. Find Sheila, and then it will say, then if you click on it, it will say make co-host.
Right now it just says pin.
That means he's not the host then.
You're not,
She makes you
oh,
co-host.
who did you make the
Oh,
host?
you made Marion the
You
host
need-
already.
You need Marion to make you the host again.
That's right. When you gave Marion the
I
host.
transferred it all over.
All right.
It takes a room full of beekeepers.
Could you make me host and I'll just do it real fast?
Oh, yeah, do that.
You can't do it from here though, Kathy, because, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, Marion's the host, clearly. So we need Marion to,
Marion? Did someone call her? She's gone.
This is why we need to stop using Zoom.
yes, yes. Second your motion.
Yeah.
Marion.
I think Marion left.
Can we text her?
What happens if you kick her out? Oh, you can't kick her out.
Then the meeting would close. I think.
This
We
is
can
like-
figure out if she's the host.
It's fine, it's fine, you know, thanks to Zoom, there's 9 more people.
Yeah. I wonder if they would come if there was no Zoom. Hmm.
Childcare, transportation, schedules. Hello, Marion.
No, we did. Oh,
But she's talking. Marion.
It's on the phone or something, probably.
no, we're not.
We're not on.
I just made everyone the host.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm just trying to put some kids to bed. So,
Oh, yeah, but
Can
that's,
you make Elaine or make Damian a co-host?
yeah, I just, one participant, multiple. All participants.
Or let all participants screen share, yes.
That's what we did.
Okay, thanks. You should
Thank
be
you
good
so
now.
much. Okay, thanks.
All right. There we are. So I'm Sheila Miller. I'm Beekeeper of the Month. It's a bit of a sad story. I'll confess from the beginning. I have yet to successfully overwinter my bees, but I'm working on it. And other than that, it's been an excellent adventure. And I've had some honey, and I've had some great mead, and I've had some medium great mead. And I've met many lovely people. So I started beekeeping with my buddy Jane in this picture, and that was great. It was great to have the 2 of us to take turns when we couldn't make it, but also trade ideas and cheer each other's on. To start with, I borrowed a pile of books from the library. There was a video from Ross Conrad in the library at that time, may still be there, and that was good. I bought his book. I even cut out the bottom board as he suggested and made a screen bottom board. I took some classes with Fran Freeman and came to some UTBA meetings. My work schedule was quite erratic, so I just did what I could. I didn't do a whole anything, but I did what I could. And so we kept bees at my friend Jane's place in Halliburton. And we bought our bees from a friend of hers who had said she'd help us out, she'd be our mentor. Well, it didn't work too well. She wasn't that helpful to us. And also buying the bees in Waterloo and taking them to Halliburton was not ideal. The pickup time was 7 in the morning and I put a mosquito net over them. But by the time I got there, they were all over my very small car. All over. And she said, put the air conditioning high, that'll keep them calm, which it did, but they still got out. And then I had a giant sweater. I wore like a lilac color sweater. So they're like looking for the nectar all over me. I didn't get stung. We made it. We got the bees in and I won't do that again. Yeah, I opened the door and just a cloud of bees came out, and for years my friends were like, remember that cloud of bees? Yeah. We did find a local guy who helped us quite a bit, Ron Lofthouse, and we paid him not much, and that was very helpful to have him. We had a couple of wax moths in one hive, and actually I came to UTBA meetings and showed my phone, and people said, "Oh yeah, well, it's just a couple, but it's probably okay." And yeah, we did clean them up. We requeened with Ron's help, and it was a little hard finding queens that year when we wanted them, but I got them from Humblebee in Hamilton. And I had to go to a meeting at a library afterwards. I didn't want to leave them in the car, so I had them in my purse, and they were perfectly quiet. And then brought them up the next day, and Ron helped us with that. Jane did the honey harvesting, and she did the crushing and straining, which was very sticky, but we didn't have that much honey, so that was fine, and it was delicious. But unfortunately the bees died, and I didn't see, but Ron said it was from condensation, sudden thaws, and freezing, and so on. So, oh yeah, we did have queen cells too, I guess, before we needed to reprint. That would make sense. So, I actually bought a piece of land that fall in Castleton, which is 10 kilometers north of the Big Carrot on the 401, so between Coburg and Brighton. And I have 7.5 acres and a little Four-Season Creek. So I got bees in Port Hope at Desi Bees the next year. And again, I had a bit of installation or problems to learn from. So the pickup time was in the evening, and I just had this idea I didn't want to go on the 401 with my bees. So I took the back routes and got lost and didn't get there till it was pitch dark. But I had to get the bees in because I didn't have a place to stay, and I needed to work the next day in Toronto. So I just did, and they were not very happy. So I won't do that again. Yeah, I was walking, after I got them in, they were like bang, bang, bang. And I was walking down the street. I was like, I hope nobody sees me, my new neighbors. But anyway, got them in. When I harvested the honey, I mean, not a lot, but I was brushing the bees off, and that was hard. It was time consuming, and I didn't get them all off. So I had bees around the car coming back to Toronto. But anyway, that's been for a couple of years, and then bought Quebec exit, which is great. Yeah. And I did the crushing, and all my pictures. How could I forget? Let's see if I can do this right.
Can't let people into the waiting room. Somebody needs to let people into the waiting room, but no one here's a co-host, right?
I'm gonna have to go have got these numbers quickly back and see some sad pictures. Oh, that was it. This is my location. It's not as tipped as that. So I wanted it far enough from the property lines for the bylaws, and I wanted it a bit out of sight because I'm not there and it's in a town. So it's not as sunny as ideal, but it was fine. So I had the bees there for 2 years. Oh, there's a friend of mine helping me plant pear trees, so that's a bit of my land. And this was my honey harvesting technique, which wasn't too effective the first year. It just wasn't hot enough for it to drain, and I ended up just scraping and losing all the wax. So it was slower the next year for the bees. But anyway, that's what I did until I got an extractor. So a couple of years later, I got a 2-frame extractor, this manual, and it's it's not super easy, but I do keep the comb for the bees, so that's good. Unfortunately, my bees died again, and what happened that time? Yeah, they were alive in March. They were dead in April. No honey in the hive, so I definitely need to get better at feeding. And I had pollen patties in there. They weren't touched. I've done pollen patties 2 or 3 winters, never had them touched. I did fondant one winter, didn't seem to touch that. So I don't know. I did treat for mites. I'm not good at mite counts, so I just treat. I mean, I do counts, and I kind of shrug my shoulders and treat. So that's not the best method, but that's what I do. I do the sugar wash. So next year I bought again from Nancy Bees, and I stayed overnight on our property and installed bees the next day. So this was great, and I have done that ever since. Bought the extractor. I do the extraction in Toronto on my driveway and get wasps around. That's the downside of not having wasps. But anyway, that's what I do. Because I have a hose and I can wash up afterwards more easily than in Castleton. That winter, my bees died again. There was lots of honey left in the hive and it looked like they died quite early in the winter. So that's more. Moved the bee yard away from where I hope to build a house. Hasn't happened yet, but anyway, hopefully. So let's see other
Can I ask you why you thought they died early in the winter?
how much honey was that?
Oh, a lot?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Curious, I didn't have that.
So, oh, okay.
Well, if you have no honey left, but these are good, they probably didn't die early in the winter, right? They probably died later on.
Oh, I see.
A lot of honey left then.
And they weren't like in the cells. They were not in the cells. The year before they were in the cells, looking like they were looking for honey.
Scraping the
So this is that first year in house, and that's the dead out. There they are hiding in the cells, searching for honey. Okay, so this is a couple of years later. I don't have tons of pictures, but yeah, okay. So I moved the beehive. The new location is a bit shady still, and it's getting shadier. There's a big tree to the west, so I'll have to talk about that. It is further from the road, so to carry the honey frames is very uneven ground. I end up taking half the frames out into another box and trying to protect them from bees and carrying them half at a time to my car. So I just have one hive. I can do that, but it's not the most efficient setup. I bought the Quebec stamp, escape. I made the fondant. A mouse, yes, as you can see in the picture, a mouse, unfortunately. And it, chewed the wood and got itself in.
Mouse?
A mouse. So I pulled all this nesting out in March and I thought maybe the bees were still alive or somewhere. And then in April, they were definitely not. See down there. So I now have a metal. I do. And this is, there was some honey still, but it was pretty moldy. That was the year I built comb switch.
After the hive dies.
Okay.
So mold is like an effect after, right? Doesn't happen before.
Okay, well, that's,
And bees clean up mold if you were to take that, put that in, so.
I didn't throw a bunch of frames out, I threw the Bruce ones out. So that was that. Ugh. And that is the new location. So that's very nice. This is, I've done some goldenrod just to show off my goldenrod. I had an owl, more goldenrod. And that was kind of a photo op. I didn't like it, but there you go. That's the location. So this is the current location from the road. So you can see it's quite a long way. And there it is. Can you see my, yeah. So I now have an electric fence. Yeah, let me go back. Yeah, so the next year I bought more bees. And my neighbor also bought bees right across the street. So just behind where this picture is taken from. And his bees were attacked by a bear within a week. He had them like 3 days or something, and it tore the hive apart. It was so small. He put things back together. The bees stuck around for a little bit. He bought an electric fence and set it all up, and then they absconded. So it was like a double heartbreak. He is getting more this year, but that was quite sad. So I bought an electric fence too. Until then, and when I bought my bees, I sort of asked at Dancing Bees, they were local. They're like, there aren't really bears around. Anyway, there's one. I tried the heavier bee wrap. I don't know if that was a good idea. And my neighbor actually made a good cover for it. This is somebody, I had a big accident over my leg and I couldn't do the final wrap up for my bees. And so I called my buddy who lost his bees and said, can you help with the wrapping up the hive? And he did. So I had put the wrap on. I just like cut a hole and I knew the bees would slide around trying to land. So he put a nice little wooden thing on. So thank you, Steve. Yeah, this is sweetie. However, once again, bees died, not much honey left. So I got more bees. And so that was last fall. I put the Quebec Escape in to get my honey, and I was going to go back the next day, and my leg hurt too much. And I didn't. I should have called Steve, but I didn't. So I went back the next week, and of course, all the honey was gone, and there were maybe 2 dead wasps there. So I guess the wasps had a very nice feeding, and I didn't. So I have. The year before, some of my honey fermented. So I put it in the fridge and I thought, well, maybe I can make some mead with it or something. I haven't done anything, but yeah, that's the plan. Why do you think it's fermented?
Well, probably
probably too much moisture,
No,
probably.
no, what do you notice that makes you think of
Oh,
fermentation?
so if I take the lid off and let it sit for even not that long, it starts to burble.
So there's clearly carbon dioxide production and bubbles. And what does it smell like? Does it smell yeasty?
Not really. No, I don't mind the smell personally.
You sure it's fermented? Did you taste it?
Yeah, for me, it tastes okay.
I won't, no, I wouldn't give yourself that verdict yet.
Okay, so what could it be?
I tried to ferment honey and I found it was quite difficult.
So
So,
what do you think it is?
well, I think that you should share some photographs of it and maybe bring some in and maybe bring some to the field day. And we'll pass it around and take a look, because fermented honey is really, well, it's like, I'm a baker, right? So I'm very familiar with the smell of yeast. And the bubbling is like very yeasty and like I said, it's very strong smell and it tastes different, right? So if you're not noticing those things, maybe not.
Okay, okay.
Maybe not so bad.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah, so I was gonna go out 2 years. One day when I was beekeeping, I have these horrible red ants in Castleton, and I always tuck in my pants, but one got in. It bit, got an infection, I had to put antibiotics, and then even after that, I developed this lump in my leg. So 3 years later, I had to have this lump excised, and it's like I have a scar an inch and a half long on my leg from this ant bite, red ant bite from when I was tending bees. So the hazards of beekeeping. But yeah, gross. And this year, unfortunately, just 2 weeks ago, I did get a tick bite, and I caught the tick probably 3 days after it, like I'd been to the country, so it'd probably been on me for a while. So I did take the antibiotics for just the one day, the 2 pills, and they were very nasty. Well, it looked pretty black. I tell you, it was largely, it was half in me. It was very unpleasant, and I was in really a hurry to get it out. So I can't tell you for sure, but it looked very black. So I think it was a deer tick. That's my. Good to take pictures. I had one in me.
I know, but
Really
now I
was
was looking at the
great.
picture, it was just like,
Wow. Yeah, it was gross. So anyway, I can't have that. And I bought the whole netting suit from Mountain Equipment, which is good. It's not too hot, so it's good. And what else? And when I bought my new this year at NCB, they had a little net bag with a zip that you can put over the cardboard. I don't think it would have worked my first year when hundreds of bees were out, but if you're just driving half an hour and you want like the 5 bees that might get out to stay fairly close, that's quite a good thing. So I bought one and it's good. So I think that's everything. Let's see if I.
So right now you have just one hive,
Yes, I have one hive, and
but you mentioned you would take.
I would take extras, or if swarm catching is wonderfully successful, I'd be very open to having that. Learning more and learning better.
So do you have a mentor with you through this?
I'm not in Castleton, and yeah.
So even what I can suggest to you, because I mentor a lot of people in the Ontario Women's Beekeeping Network, which is only a virtual network. I do virtual mentoring.
Makes
We
sense.
take our phones into the apiary, they use their phone, they show me what they're looking at. And it's better than not having anybody with you.
Okay, that's
So
good.
even that is an option for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
very much for sharing. You have really been through a lot. Huge adventure. A really big adventure. A lot of people don't go through quite that much.
Many people quit.
Well, the thought has crossed my mind, but I mean, it's.
Well, you've been
fun.
through all that stuff. It's got to be easier from here.
Right. And I mean, I've also had the whole adventure of like buying this piece of land and then having my leg injury, so this is a small part of my. Yeah. All right. Share.
All right, so shall we take a 5 minutes break or do we just continue?
What do you guys think? We need a break or keep going? Your verdict? No, keep going. The verdict of the room is keep going.
All right, so following, we have a panel for catching swarms with Sebastian, Michelle, and Damian. Do you guys want to present yourselves one by one, please?
So, yeah, so it's swarms and it's trap outs.
Mhm.
I'm gonna do a little bit of introduction on how this all happened, is that I got a phone call from someone who said that they had honeybees in a tree on their front yard and their neighbors were complaining to them. So I went out there by bike just to make sure that it was actually bees in said tree. And turns out, yeah, there were honeybees coming in and out of a tree. And so I knew that if we tried to do this, that I had never done a trap out. I probably had watched 50 videos on how to do them, but I'd never done one myself. And I knew that there were things that were going to be beyond me, especially when it came to attaching things to the tree and, you know, just kind of working with the tree and how to get it connected to a box. So I invited Sebastian Bertrand, who is an amazing pest control professional. And one of the things that makes Sebastian very unique is that he will relocate honeybees, and we have done some cutouts together, but he also does pest control if the client wants to, without the use of harmful pesticides, although it is definitely more work. And he also has relocated bumblebees and leafcutter bees and carpenter bees, and sometimes he lets me tag along and come with. So I knew that Sebastian's expertise was in thinking outside of the box and in having good foundation for building and construction and working with materials, and that is definitely something that isn't within my purview. And then I needed somebody else who was like a really reliable beekeeper who had enthusiasm and dedication and a really strong curiosity. And so Damian was the perfect partner for that, because you know, we're very much on a learning mode, and I knew that Damian as university professor and a researcher probably would have a good aptitude for learning. So we headed out to the client's home, and this is what we found.
Can I just ask, yes, was it trap out just getting bees out of any confined space, or is there something else?
Oh, so actually, why don't you go through the outline?
Okay, sure. And I'll move this closer so you can just control the arrows. So we'll talk about swarms because it's swarm season, and to answer some of those questions, we'll talk about catching swarms versus bait hives versus trap outs. We'll give a quick update on what's been happening in 2023 because it's been incredibly active. I've caught 4 in the past week, 3 in the past 4 days. I was chasing these this morning, not working on the presentation, much to Michelle's chagrin. So it's been an active season, and then we'll talk about the trap out from last season. And then this is review for most of you, but we thought it would be good to include. I'll let Michelle talk about the slide. I will say these pictures are all from Raleigh, North Carolina. They were the ones that I liked, so I checked them up here. Want to talk about what swarms are, why they happen?
Oh, sure. So swarms are part of the reproductive cycle of the whole colony. Rather than talking about reproduction within the colony, we're talking about eggs and larvae and emerging bees. But from a species level, we're talking about how the species reproduces within our environment. And so the honeybees, they need to multiply just as we do, and the colonies that are in trees or in our boxes need to continue to reproduce within our ecology. So when the colony is growing in the spring and it reaches its physical capacity within the space it's occupied, they will realize, because of incoming nectar, temperatures, and incoming pollen, that it's great for them to reproduce. It's safe for them to go find a new home. So they will get the queen to lay queen cells. So those are special cells that they feed to become new queens. And then when those cells are almost ready to emerge, the old queen and half of the swarm will get up and go to their new home. And that new home is determined by scout bees, who the whole 2 or 3 weeks before this, while this whole process was going, were going out like real estate agents looking for new places to live. Tom Seeley has a wonderful book, Honeybee Democracy, talking about the whole process of how honeybees decide on where they're going to live and what they're going to do. So right now is prime swarm season. There's lots of nectar, lots of pollen. It's really good weather for a long time. And those bees, they are trying to find new homes. Yeah.
Don't bees are going out for the swarm?
Yes, because they want to know where they're going to move the colony. Because when the swarm leaves the hive on that day, they often will go to a resting spot before they get to their final location. They have a destination in mind, but sometimes they change their mind. Like we have seen, but yes, they have a destination, but the queen often can't fly the whole way. And because the queen can't fly the whole way because she's not accustomed to flying, they often will stop every, say, 400 or 500 meters, you know, and then regroup, and then before they move on the next day. And when they stop and regroup in the trees, that's when we get the phone call.
Yeah.
So how long do they regroup for?
Anywhere from 20 minutes to 3 days.
The one that I just caught finally, it was sitting for 2 days in the same place. We put him in a box.
The fence? The fence one? It was on the side of the fence. I'm in this one catching groups. I
Oh,
saw
yeah,
the.
that was that one. First
Okay,
it was in
yeah,
a tree,
yeah,
then it
yeah,
was in my box, then
yeah.
it was on a full timber, then it was on the fence.
Yeah.
They started to build wax on the fence when I finally.
Okay.
It's crazy.
So
So, and I'll talk to this slide. So there's various ways, this is what you were asking, to get swarms. There's the preemptive way, which is swarm traps. I have swarm traps a half a kilometer from the 3 swarms that I caught in the past week, which is funny. Russian scions, which I've never set up, but it's essentially a baited rope. Is that correct, Michelle? You have a Russian
I
scion?
have a Russian scion on, it's made from a 2x4 with screen on it that's painted with beeswax and propolis and some lemongrass oil. And I hang it, I screw that 2x4 through a pail lid. So the pail lid will make it sheltered. So if it rains or something and the swarm landed there, but also the pail lid allows me to take the bottom of the pail and scoop it up and move the bees.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's what I mean, that's my Russian scion.
Set one up in my apiary. I haven't done
And does it work? I have never caught one, but I've seen lots of people with it. You have to, the thing about the Russian scion is you actually have to be there. They might work if I was there when it landed there, but it also can leave, right? So you have to keep an eye on them.
And somewhere in your cyclone.
Yeah, it seems like it's a preemptive measure, right? You kind of hope that they'll land there first and you can grab them. Manual swarm collection, which is what the swarm list is, and I think it's fun. I did one last Sunday where I was on Bay Street for 4 hours waiting for this swarm that was 20 or 30 feet up to get in a bucket. And I talked to everyone that walked by. It was a great Sunday. It was a beautiful day and people were asking all kinds of questions. Cutouts are destructive. I know you've done some. This picture in the top right is one I did in 2019. I was motivated by having just lost my first colony. And I read about that, or was told about this, and it was 3 stories up, and I'm afraid of heights, but I did it anyway. But that's destructive. That requires skill, that requires repair, that requires a lot of things. And then there's trap outs, which is what we're going to talk about. And that is where it's a structure that cannot be damaged or is hard to damage, like a tree that you don't want to take down. So how do you get the bees out? A brick wall, often they'll come in from the inside instead of the outside. But in this case, we had to do a trap out in the tree to get the bees out. Some swarm catching equipment. I'll let Michelle talk to this. You added this earlier.
So when you go to catch a swarm, your equipment will vary depending on where you find the swarm. It might be in a tree, it might be on a car, it might be on a glass plate window, it might be on a Ford F-150, it might be on a solar powered parking meter. It might be like, these are all the things that I have caught swarms of over the years. Yeah, so you never really know if you want to be ready. So I always have a swarm kit and it's always ready to go. It's a big giant Rubbermaid bin. And inside that Rubbermaid bin, well, I have a nuke box, but sometimes the swarms are too big for a nuke box. So take 2 or take a single D. I have a white sheet. What's the white sheet for? I can't tell you how many times while I'm working, bees fall on the ground and you step on them. So I always start by putting a white sheet down, because when I was taking bees off of the solar powered parking meter downtown, the queen fell on the ground. And so I was able to see her, and I always carried a queen cage. And then I was able to quickly pick up the queen and put her in the queen cage. So that's what I like the white sheet for. All kinds of brushes. Also, dustpans are good for taking bees off of windows. Yeah.
I just had a quick question. It's like, future thinking. When you collect the swarm, what do you do with it after?
Oh, well, we install it.
Yeah.
We install it in a colony,
Like at your,
in your apiary.
Okay.
That's the whole purpose, is to
But you
rehome it.
don't have an apiary.
Well, then you gotta get connected with
Then you
people
gotta
who
have a
do.
friend's place, you
Yeah.
gotta bring it to,
You have to have
maybe
a
over
friend.
here.
Yeah.
Go through 7 acres.
That's how you start your apiary.
Yeah, but this is the, so you do need to have a plan when you
Yeah.
go out. You need to have a place to
That's
take
where
it.
they need to go.
Sometimes they're in trees, and sometimes the whole swarm will be hanging like on one
Yeah,
single little
that's the
beautiful
greatest.
branch.
Yeah, that's
And
the
then you
greatest.
just bring your tree pruners or your loppers and just cut the branch and there you go,
Yeah.
you've got it. But most of the time it's in like some kind of pine tree and they're all like in every single pine needle or whatever. And if they're high up, I carry ladders and step stools. I also have a bee vacuum that I made myself out of a 5-gallon paint thing from Home Depot with a little, it's an air mattress inflator on like suck instead of blow. It's very lightweight. It does, and inside it has frames, and I kind of concocted it, but it works really well in circumstances where the bees are really hard to reach. And I've used that with Sebastian on our cutouts when we're working like inside buildings and we can't shake or we want to vacuum every single last bee, but they can be helpful too. But the last thing I want to put down there is a Queen Throne by Blue Green Horizons. It's extremely effective. John Kaufman made one from this group. We had the Queen Throne is something designed by D.W. Schoenthal. He lives in California, and he actually came and spoke to the UTBA. So if you want to find out how to build one of these, you should just go to our YouTube channel and look through them, and you will find him the description. He will be in there, and you'll be able to see how to build one of these. But basically, it's a bucket on a pole with frames inside, and it has like a 99.9% success rate
Yeah, great.
of catching swarms. So so if you're gonna go out there, be ready, have your stuff in the car or in wherever you're gonna go.
The thing that makes them so great is that not having one requires that you throw a rope over the branch, which I've done the past two, and that's annoying. Like you can't get it positioned perfectly. I had some guy come by and he was laughing that I couldn't get it perfectly, so I made him do it. He got it better actually. And then 2 engineering students who noticed the swarm went and got a pole from the engineering building, and we then repositioned the rope. So this eliminates all of that. You just put the bucket under it and it's fantastic. All right, so what's next? So this is the swarm update. These numbers are really interesting. I know that there are more swarms around, and I got these from, sorry, what is her first name?
Lynn Santos.
Yes, Lynn, who manages the swarm list in Toronto, gave me these numbers today. This is a lot. Last year, there were very, very, very few, and obviously environmental conditions, et cetera, success rate of bees through the winter have kind of all contributed to this. I said to myself the other day, well, I'm glad there's no swarms today. And then we got another call for a swarm. They just keep happening. It's crazy. This one on the left was the one that was downtown on Bay Street. The one on the right was on, I can't remember the road right there, right south of the metro on Bloor, just south of there. And there was I didn't have a ladder that could reach, so I stood on the roof of my truck, and
And
that worked.
if you find swarms that are more than 20 or 25 feet up, my suggestion is to not bother with them,
Yeah.
especially something 30, 40, 50 feet. You're not going to be successful. It's a waste of time. They'll move on. They'll find something. Yeah, you don't have to chase every single one. You won't be successful in all of them.
Way back.
Yeah.
So here's the trap ad example from last year.
So we got the phone call, and I went out to see it, and the first photograph is of the bees in the tree. And if you look in the center, you can see there, you can just a little bit, you can see the wax, like you can see underneath, and I assumed that this colony wasn't very big because I had been told that it had just moved into the hive. But Sebastian, who dealt with it at the end, will assure you that this was an enormous colony. And I think the tree, what did you estimate how deep it was?
About 1 foot and the opening,
Yeah,
about 1.5 foot.
yeah. So the cavity inside was at least a foot deep, and who knows how
Yeah.
tall it was.
Yeah,
But if you
there
think
was
of it
something
like,
in it. at the bottom and going up to it.
Yeah, so this was- Yeah, so it was an enormous cavity, and that really worked against us in this because the bees were really able to get away from us. Like, there was enormous space, but the homeowner decided that they want them to be removed. You can see the tree that it was in. Oh my goodness, it was in a basswood tree. I mean, there's just like nothing better for bees. Like in the first 2 weeks of July, they probably packed like, I don't know, 20, 30 pounds, 40 pounds of honey just from the tree that they were living in. So again, it worked to our disadvantage because they probably had a lot of stores in the tree before we even arrived, and it allowed them to survive without all of the foragers that we were stealing once we got the hive on there. It was very difficult to attach to that bark. It's very knobby. It's not smooth or like whatever. And we did not have permission to drill into the tree, to use smoke to pump them out, or to use Be Quick, which is a fumigant, a repellent. We didn't have permission, and we just, I know Sebastian would say, we just didn't have that much confidence about the tree, like how big. We did we use a flare on it? We couldn't use, so we had a flare gun, which gives you the heat signature, but it doesn't work that well on trees that are like this big because it can't see through it very well. But I have used a flare gun in the winter or when it's really cold, and then you can kind of see. The problem is that by the time it's already June, it's too warm and the tree was too thick, so that wasn't.
Was the client difficult?
No, the scenario wasn't always good. The client wasn't particularly difficult.
I just want to speak to one, and then you can kind of go through the slide. The fact that we did not necessarily assume we would get the whole colony out led to kind of other successes in doing this, other than simply learning how to do it, getting a majority of the bees. We pulled 2 nukes out of that tree. So it can also kind of serve as a fountain of nukes.
Plus about 4 or 5 frames of honey.
Yeah, we were just kind of pulling nukes out, really, is what it turned out to be. So let me just go through the steps and you can go through the details. So basically what you do is you figure out where the bees are coming in and out. You seal up all of the entrances except for the one that you want to focus on, the one that you're going to set the equipment up on. You prepare the box, and Sebastian will talk about that, and as well as Michelle, they really were the brains behind that. You mount the box. Ours was quite secure. I had no doubt that we could have whacked to that thing with semi and it would have stayed up. Set the tube up, monitor the box, put a frame of eggs in. The idea there is to draw the queen out. But in our case, they just made a new queen and we got a nuke. Then we put in another frame of eggs. They made a new queen. We got a nuke there. And that really actually worked. I grew my apiary through this method. And really the trick is to monitor it. I think between the 3 of us, we tried to go there at least weekly.
Oh yeah, we were.
Yeah.
You mounted a box.
We have
I'm
pictures.
gonna show you the,
Oh,
yeah,
we have
this is like
pictures.
the general.
Oh,
Okay,
okay.
so we'll show you the box, but just to say that again, the idea in the trap out is get as many bees out of the tree or the structure, and then try to incentivize the queen to come out as well. She's running out of workers, she's running out of food, she smells eggs, she walks out. But in our case, as Michelle said, we thought she had enough food and there happened to be enough bees in there, and the bees in the box just were like, all right, well, let's make a queen, and they made a queen, and we ended up with a nuke in our trap out box. So we took those frames
Did you
and
trap out birds that are long enough for them to construct?
With the nuke.
yeah, it was a nuke box.
Yeah,
It was just a 5-frame nuke box. And it
So
Oh.
this took several weeks then.
took all summer, yeah.
Yeah, that's, I am imagining you going in and leaving in a day or 2. And now I'm understanding.
This was basically, I would stop here and then I would go to my apiary.
Okay, got
It
it.
was just a,
It was
I'm understanding a
June,
little bit.
what do you want to say?
June 12th to September 6th.
Okay, cool, cool,
Yeah.
thank you. That's helpful.
It was the whole,
It was a
there,
while.
it was September 2, yeah, it was the whole thing.
All right, so that's the general process, but I'll let the 2 of them now kind of talk about the setup and everything.
Yeah, so we knew that what we had to do was restrict access in that hole, and most of the things you'll find on YouTube involve using screen that is stapled to a tree. And in the end, probably next time, that's what we would try to do. But the truth is, look at this tree. It's not a smooth surface. It's really knobbly and hard to work with. So Sebastian came up with this idea that if we put in a foam tube, then the center of the foam tube it's a pool noodle. So it had a hole in the center and we could put a tube in there. And that fit really snug. And there were some Sebastian's kids and they came out helpful. Observers mostly.
Oh, it's not too high.
Not too bad.
Yeah, it was maybe 6 or 7 feet.
Again, as a person who appreciates gravity and heights, respectfully, this was a pleasure.
So Sebastian, if you weren't able to attach or drill into it, how did you mount those?
Oh,
Can you let
we could
Sebastian,
drill-
can
we
you
could
let
drill-
Sebastian?
I was just gonna say, we just couldn't drill through the tree to put a like a fumigant in.
Yeah, so I made pilot poles for my, I got some extra long Tapcon screws.
Okay.
That are meant for cement brick. But I thought it would hold pretty well on that type of.
Yeah.
It's not very dense wood, but it was long and the thread was long and so I was able to get those in. At multiple places.
Mhm.
The tree is not perfectly straight too, so. But it's right, I don't know, if yeah, you could see the sidewalk, it's right there, like I didn't want it to fall on someone and then I'd be responsible for whatever happens. And then there's teenagers, you know.
Renee, we've seen people use hunter's blinds instead of strapped to the tree. Yeah, sometimes you can use a hunter's blind.
So my son and I, we built this frame with angle iron. And we bolted it together. And then, yeah, so we were able to get Tapcon screws in different spots along the frame and it was very secure. That's foam,
It's a spray foam, just.
it's a spray foam, so I wanted to, how did I do that again? So I filled the gaps with steel wool. And to hold it in place, I used foam. So that if they wanted to chew through the foam, they'd run into steel wool. So it worked as a kind of, and as an adhesive and it held the steel wool in place. Yeah.
And the phone didn't have that.
No, this is just, well, I suppose
I don't know.
there's pesticide foams and
Yeah.
there's non-pesticide foams.
Yeah,
This is
like
just a construction.
Door and
foam.
window phone.
And the orange color is a fire retardant. I just used that one. I had that one on hand.
It's primarily on the outside though, it was not in the structure of the tree.
Yeah, it was on the outside.
So this is the nuke box that we installed. It's just a standard 5-frame nuke box. We drilled a hole through it. You'll see the little red cone in the center picture. That is the one-way exit. So bees they can get out of the tree into the box, but have a hard time getting back into the tree because of the shape of the cone. The only disadvantage, and I think we would have thought about this a little more, where we drilled the hole, just made it hard to fit the 5 frames in. Potentially maybe cut a frame, so that you can fit the frames in straight, but it worked. We kept, we used the hole saw, right? So I kept that little bit and I just plugged that thing back in, and if I ever need it again, I can take it out. We also obviously just use a wine cork.
Super frame, right? So it's shorter.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, medium frame.
Medium in there, that's a really good idea, yeah. All of these things are MacGyvered. There's no like.
Then we screwed that thing up there and let it ride. And that was when we started, right?
Yeah, if you look at the very first slide on the left, you can see that Sebastian is actually putting a clear plastic tube that runs from the center of the pool noodle through into the back of the box, and where that tube arrived, then the red one-way cone was directly on the other side of that.
It looks like me.
How
Is that
deep,
you?
how deep into the tree did you put the clear tube?
Oh, no, it not,
No, just a little bit.
well,
It was into
maybe
the
what,
foam,
4 or
right?
5 inches?
Oh.
Like yeah, like the tree entrance was like 4 or 5 inches.
Oh,
Like the bees were in there, so we actually had to you have to put that. So if you can get them at the beekeeping supply places,
You want the orange?
they're used for bee escapes.
And what's the reasoning for not using the smoking method?
We couldn't, right?
We would have had to drill a big hole through into the back of the tree and then pump it through so that the smoke would be directional. And we just,
Oh,
you want to smoke them out, right? So we would have had to gone to the back of the tree and we would have had to bore a big hole and then we would have had to pump smoke through. And it was beyond the scope of what we were prepared to do here, or use Bee Quick.
And like, would it have been conceivable to like, if the hole had been big, which I have no idea how big it was like kind of like this, to like put the hose kind of in an angle going more towards that side, and then drill a hole so the smoke can go more on that side with dreams that the smoke would wrap around, push them out into the thing.
We will invite you next time.
I have no idea.
We will have you top of our list to come up with these ideas because
I know.
I kind of thought that too, or have a pipe that goes down to the bottom. So that
Just
pumps
send them
smoke
an
through the
instructional
pipes.
manual.
Yeah. Tell the bees what the plan is.
I mean, it really is very much like, oh, let's try that. Like, and we could have, but I thought you said that the homeowner didn't want big holes drilled in, essentially.
No, I'm saying no holes.
No, but I know
Oh,
what you
the
mean.
tube.
I'm saying in the hole.
Ah, yeah.
That you build that fantastic idea of the mesh with the spray foam. In there, put like two holes instead of one,
Yeah.
but angle them so that the smoke gets pushed kind of coasting around and then the bees kind of come out the other side. I have no idea. I'm talking out of my butt.
Yeah, no, you might have. Like I said, we'll invite you next time.
That's what that's what I was thinking too.
It really is a lot of guess messing around. And the crazier thing is you have no idea what the shape of that cavity is. It's not like a perfect cylinder. It's gnarly. And so who knows? Like, it would be one of those things of like, let's try that. And like, let's try this. And that's what we did and kind of landed on this.
And I think, Sebastian, we did try and send a camera in, but when the camera goes in, the bees don't like the light and they stand on it. And so we couldn't see anything. We
No, they
did.
were all voguing. They were all.
No, and I think we could have video of it. Must be on your phone, not mine. We have video. We actually sent a camera in first to
That
see
would've
what we
been
could
cool.
see, but the bees kept standing on the camera. So it wasn't very helpful. So where are we?
This is kind of what the setup looked like as it was running, and we would just, there was a ladder on site. I think we would just stop by, one of us, once a
We
week.
could, yeah, we would go by every week.
Like, can you go, you know, I'm out of town, why don't you stop by? I would usually go if we're removing bees because I was taking them up, although you took one to your house, I believe.
When you couldn't come, I did.
Yeah, I was out of town, I think. Yeah. And so you'd go check on the bees and it would fill up rather quickly because all of the foragers are coming out and they can't
And
get
we
back
started
in.
with blank frames.
Yeah,
There might have been maybe one drawn frame and it's,
they built everything out and they filled it with honey and then we gave them eggs and they made a queen.
and then we were like, okay, now what do we do?
Take it away, do it again.
So did you keep this box and just pull up 5 frames per time?
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, with the first one, I think we got when it was a cell. And then the second one we tried to, but we all got
That's
busy
right.
and we couldn't,
That's
so we
right.
had
The
to go
first one,
early. And I went really early in the morning and pulled everything out when I knew that everybody would kind of be in there.
yeah, and I think what we did was we transferred the frames out, put them in a Pro Nuke box and drove them because the queen cell hadn't emerged yet. They had made a queen cell, but it hadn't emerged. Well, emergency cells, right? They had made some emergency cells. So we just pulled all the, you can see, yeah, so there's my Pro Nuke box came down. Actually, I think it's my observation hive. And, you know, and then we took it and I took it home. But the second time that we did it and we put the eggs in, we missed it. And because it was like two and a half weeks or something, and they made the queen cells, they made emergency cells, and the virgins emerged. So then we had to wait until the queen was laying, because we didn't want to take the box away if the virgin was out on the mating flight.
So what you did was you drilled a hole in the back of the nuke, but they still have the ability to go out the front.
Yes.
of the nuke. So
Yeah,
they-
there's
then
just
the nuke becomes their
regulations.
home because they can't.
That's
go
right.
back.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. And then, and we just, you know, and when we took it, eventually when we took it down, we just put a cork in the back and.
I still have that nuke box, actually. It's got one of the swarms in it. It's on the roof of Galbraith right now. With one of the swarms from this week. Yeah, so all of it, this was all interesting. And I would do it again. And honestly, my goal would be to pull out nukes. Because then if you get the queen, it's like a bonus. I really like the nuke farm idea if it's a big colony. I don't know how y'all feel.
Well, and we got a lot of honey. Like if you had a bee tree on your property and you wanted to like get honey from it, I would just put this box on it. And they would just like use it and then take a couple of frames of honey and then take the box. They'd be like collecting honey from the bees that are living for free in your tree.
But the goal to the property owner was to get rid of the bee.
Yes.
Eventually.
And if your queen is still in there and she's still got, did you get to that, or
Yes,
am I,
we did.
am I jumping ahead a few
That's all.
slides?
did.
That's all. Yeah.
That's see Sebastian's end because he's the licensed pest professional and
How did that work?
it didn't have the outcome that we wanted.
This is not what I wanted to do, but so I had to exterminate.
No. So you got a bunch of them out and then you couldn't get any more in the end too. And how do you exterminate them, dare I ask? Is it
I used an expanding pesticide foam this time.
And then he had to seal the tree. Because otherwise another colony would have just moved in. Yeah, it was,
You did save some of the bees.
and we tried to talk the owner into just keeping it. We would try it next spring. We could do this as a bee tree. We tried to sell them on the value of having a bee tree.
I would be surprised if they've made it through the winter. I know,
They usually don't.
yeah, so there was a bee tree on Major Street that I wanted to do a trap out on, and the homeowner said, oh, I want to keep them. I said, that's fine, but just understand that you probably won't have them here in the spring. And they, of course, they didn't make it through the winter. I put mesh over that hole and put a bait hive there last year, but thinking that the tree would be a magnet. But last year was a slow swarm season. I don't have a bait hive there right now. I have one 2 blocks from there. I should put one there, actually. Yeah, anything else you want to add?
I mean, so after that, then I put a piece of wood in it. And I used some roofing sealant around it. To fill it in, that was it.
But Sebastian's a great resource for those
So
of us.
inside that tree, there is comb, honey, dead bees, foam, all just in there for all time.
Yeah,
Sorry, the tree's dead or alive?
no, it's still alive.
So like, what's the longevity of that tree with such a gaping hole in it? Wouldn't the, like,
Oh,
I understand that they didn't want to bore a hole in it because you're busting into the cambium and it's not the best for the tree, but if there's already a gaping hole that's damaging.
It was very healthy.
I think-
Other than
I
that,
think
it
the
was
city
very
taught-
healthy for some reason.
the core of the tree is not moving nutrients. The xylem and phloem are in the outer,
Yeah, I understand.
right? So it's structurally, it was quite sound.
But didn't I talk to the city about this one?
Yeah, I think so.
I think I talked to the city about it and the city arborist said that the tree was very healthy. So there was no concerns about the tree regardless of what they did to it.
Great shape.
And boring the hole damaged the xylem and phloem, not
So-
the hole inside.
No, but even boring the hole, like I sample trees often, and you take a cord and see how old it is, you take a cord and sample the tissue.
Sure.
That little bit is not gonna kill that
Then
tree.
why was the client so close to
I have no idea. I never talked to the client. That was his guess.
It's,
it?
You mean for us to be able to smoke them out?
Yeah.
He just wasn't comfortable with it and he wasn't knowledgeable. So,
gonna say for lack of education.
yeah, so it wasn't something that, you know.
We have a giant hole on one side. so a little hole.
There wasn't a lot of common sense that went into this at all.
That was the only reason why I was asking, like, how was the client in relationship to that, you know, because like, yeah.
Do you know what, Renee, he was influenced a lot by his neighbor's complaints. And when the neighbor next door first said that the bees were, she used all they were attacking her kids or landing here or doing there. And actually it turned out she had a wasp nest on her property. Right? No, but it was real. But because the neighbors were so prickly about it, he was hesitant to. Yeah, he would just wanted it gone and we kind of had to negotiate. Yeah, and he kept saying, at the end, the bees are gonna be gone, right? So we kept pushing it off, like in June, we didn't know how long the trap out would take, and we were hoping that it would just be like 2 or 3 weeks. And then as the weeks dragged on to months, he was getting a little antsy towards the end.
Yeah, especially because he had this outside his house. Danger.
It's art.
Yeah, exactly.
Two nukes and
Two nukes and 4 frames of honey.
The nukes helped me. I mean, I grew my apiary and those nukes survived. I mean, it was.
Like,
yeah.
Renee, I would call you next. I don't think you were around too much. I would include you next time because you have the mind to, yes, you have that creative inventor mind. And you can, like I said, I brought people in who could think outside the box.
all did too, because you did this. It's amazing.
Yeah, but you know, yeah, but you know. Yeah.
it's interesting because for me, when I think about my bees swarming, my worst fear is my bees swarming and inhabiting my neighbor's house.
Yeah,
And
that's-
I live in
that's
a
a
part of
problem.
the city where all of our houses are 100 years old or more, and they're all full of holes and gaps everywhere. And I don't want to do that to my
Yeah,
neighbors.
I've
Like that
heard
is
it.
my worry about beekeeping more than all the other stuff.
Chris, there's a guy named Chris who's the president now of the Wake County Beekeepers Association in North Carolina. His assertion is that as a beekeeper, your biggest responsibility is to prevent swarms so that doesn't happen.
Yeah,
And-
that's
I
my
mean, it's-
worry. Yeah.
And you could try, but being blasé about it, and I've encountered a couple in the past couple days that are that way, I think is not caring about the negative externalities, the real negative externalities.
You don't need a neighbor, right? So.
So there was a recent Facebook post asking that if you know that if your neighbor knows that you're a beekeeper and your bees and there are honeybees that enter their property, are you responsible for getting them out? Or is he responsible for maintaining his soffit, fascia, brickwork to not prevent them from coming in? Well, I think it's, I think that it's not, I think it's a debate that doesn't have like an answer to it. I think that it's, as beekeepers, we know that swarms possibly will enter. Sebastian and I have taken them out of, they came in from some brickwork, they went along the brickwork, and they ended up in the ductwork of the ceiling of a basement in a church. And there we were, we're in the middle, we're already 10 feet into the building. That's what they were using, just a conduit, 10 feet, probably 10 feet in. And there we are. Sebastian's cutting holes in the ceiling, the drywood, the bees are falling down on us. Then we had to cut, cut out, we vacuumed up all the loose bees and then we cut out all of the comb and we banded it into frames and the colony made it. And we found the queen and everything, but the damage to the
No,
church.
the damage to the church.
It's a way of life.
Yeah, but and if you're gonna entertain doing cutouts, you have to have the knowledge to be able to tackle the, whatever it is, masonry or the drywall or whatever, which is why I use Sebastian, because he's licensed for this stuff, because if you have bats in your belfry or raccoons in your whatever, that's his bailiwick. He knows how to cut into buildings and he also has really amazing carpentry skills. So when the job is finished, it looks usually sometimes better than when because he's very meticulous about how it looks. But for me as a beekeeper,
You repair the area?
yeah.
Did you bring your business cards?
Oh, yeah.
But I mean, that's also, it's, a lot, when a beekeeper does it, you don't know what their carpentry skills are gonna be like or whatever.
No,
So
it's
is that the end of our slide?
It is, yeah. Yeah, the only time I ever did a cutout was.
I don't think now, but you never know.
Yeah.
That'll do it. So you cut into the wall and I'll take the bees.
Yeah.
That's the end of the slides. Anybody have any other questions? Other than that, I think we're finished.
Super interesting.
Is that the only trap out you guys have done?
Yeah,
Yeah.
We just did it last summer. so-
let's find another one. I'm in.
I started beekeeping.
Behind those tables. You can't reach in the middle of it.
2020. Very big swarm season. This year was a very big, is seeming to be a big swarm season. And I just wonder what, I think in 2021, they were saying that it had to do with it being such a mild spring and that allowed the bees to really
Build up early.
Yeah, I think a lot of people were surprised. I think then there was a lot of colony loss.
That winter, yeah.
Season. But so it's source and then catalyst for,
And so for this year, why would you think that there's so many swarms?
I think everybody built up really quickly. No, everybody was surprised in earlier, weeks earlier than they thought they would have to worry about it,
Yeah.
partially.
And when you split prevent a swarm. Normally you would take the queen to the new.
Mimic a swarm.
Yeah, mimic a swarm, yeah, that's what I've done. Twice. But the second time, despite the best of my efforts, I couldn't find that queen, so she might still be in the original one.
I got desperate a few weeks ago and just took the 2 queen cells and made splits and just was like, fine, you swarm. No, the guys just
Sort
didn't
you
do
sorted
it.
it, yeah.
Aline's got thoughts on preemptively splitting based on the number of, and I'll let him speak to this, based on the number of brood frames, right? Like
We
to
need your
prevent,
wisdom here.
Aline, can you hear me?
Yes. Yeah, I can hear you.
So swarm prevention, you were talking one time about splitting prior to there being queen cells to just kind of suppress that, to try to suppress that drive. And you even talked about kind of a rule of thumb that you have for yourself, not saying it works for everyone, but like number
Yeah,
of
if at the point where you have 6 frames of brood, you can do a split. If you're doing one box management, when there's like 7 to 8 frames in a one box, then that's a swarm already happening.
Yeah.
So
And
as
I
the-
tried
Yeah,
to
go
do that this year, but was surprised because of how quickly everything built up.
Yeah. So just keep in mind this year is very, very, very rich in bees. It's like 1 in a 10, 15 years. So make as many splits as you can, let them grow and have reserves next year, because next year is going to be a disaster, like the inverse of this year, right?
Why would you say that?
Because every year that starts early and has large colonies will host a lot of varroa, will breed and host, then we will have a lot of losses. This is the year where people get like a lot of varroa, they get negligent with checking on time and or not negligent, but maybe not keeping up, right? So we will have a huge amount of varroa spreading all over. And then if treatment is not done on time, varroa can damage the colony, even if in September you wipe them all and you're so happy that you clean them out. The infection, the destruction, and so on already happened. So my recommendation is make sure that you do count the
On the
mites,
testing.
do treat if you need to, start early. There's treatments for when you have the honey frames on, right? There's formic acid that you can use, but definitely don't wait till October or November for the wipeout clean out, right? Like,
We're kind of early.
yeah.
Renee.
I think she just went to wash.
Oh, okay, because as you know, this is our last meeting in this building, in the University of Toronto. And our next meetings are going to be
At the Witchwood Barn.
at the Witchwood Barns. So, perhaps Renee can,
And can we thank Kathy for organizing this for us?
oh, yes.
Yeah, so September, for our meeting September, we're able to go to the stops location. So Witchwood Barns is kind of like a big building. There's a lot going on. There's like artist studios and things. We're actually in the section of the stop. It's like a food security, food growing greenhouse spot. So they are actually excited to have us as like beekeepers being there and having those chats. The space isn't huge, but it's not small either. It's more kind of picnic table set up. We can rearrange things if we want. They have audio visual available. They have everything pretty much that we need. There's a small kitchen. Well, there's a big kitchen, but we can use it just to set up tea and stuff like that. If we ever did want to host, like have real food, we would just have to pay a fee to rent the kitchen because then they're stuck cleaning it. We're responsible for cleaning it. We get 3 hours for $150 each time. It's an amazing price. It's fantastic. And if we ever want to have an event where we make our own pizza, they have a pizza oven we can rent too. It's really fun. Like there's gardens
Every
around.
meeting, then we're gonna do the.
Yeah.
That's what I hear.
Yeah, okay.
We are confirmed for the whole season.
So we're confirmed once we give them money. So, yeah, so to access it, there's a few things. You can take, you go via TTC, and I would recommend the easiest way is to Google Map it, because depending on where you're coming from, it might be easier to just walk from DuPont. It might be easier to take the St. Clair streetcar, lots of options. When you're looking for parking, that's less exciting. You just really read the signs, correct? I don't remember them by heart, but just make sure that you see where you're allowed to park and not, because you're near Witchwood Park, which is the only still gated community in Toronto. So they really like to make sure the rules are followed. So yeah, but it's a great spot. People are super nice there. So I'm kind of excited that we're shifting it there, and it's an accessible space as well.
Cool. When did we start up again?
In September, and we will send out an email to everybody with the information for the upcoming June 25th field day, with the information for the July 8th field day, and with the information for September.
And one more thing that we should discuss, it, I don't know if it's more like a committee thing, but we do need to get on this about discussing for honey extraction at the spot that I was telling you about in Etobicoke. That's a go for July or August. We just have to pick a date kind of now. So it's reserved.
So we've decided that we're gonna do community honey extraction days, especially helpful for those of you who do not have their own extractors, or if you just want to come in and help and have fun or whatever. And the location is
327 Bering Avenue. We can do it a Saturday or a Sunday. Sunday is often better in terms of, but they'll just book it off for us. It's very hot in the greenhouse because it's a greenhouse in the middle of summer, but we actually want that. So, and there's places to cool off. There's a washroom there. There's access to water, there's everything that we kind of need there.
So we'll just make that kind of like another field day. So it'll just be a little bit later in the summer, but we'll just do that after the meeting. We'll figure out a date, or we'll propose some dates, and we'll send all that out.
And you had also mentioned having like a honey festival with our members. So let's just to keep people posted, since we're not going to see each other till
Yeah, we think
September.
that we potentially could have a honey festival ourselves. It takes a lot of work to organize it. So what we need are people to step up and say, hey, this is something that I could do, and I could help organize the honey festival.
So, and we could open it, we could be the ones kind of organizing it and showcasing our stuff, but potentially have it open, for example, at that space, we have a native plant market.
So we can open it up to the
So,
public.
you know, if people were interested in kind of coming to see it, it wouldn't be that much more work for us to simply open it up to people, and we might gain some new members that we might like.
And the field days are open to new members. They just pay for lunch that day, but otherwise, if you have friends or anyone interested in beekeeping or interested in the UTBA, you are welcome to bring them. There's no charge for anything except for the lunch. So yeah, the opportunity to increase our membership as well.
Can you get the email that we were supposed to respond to for the visit?
For everything at chair@urbantorontobeekeepers.org, but I am going to send out an email this week with the details on all the upcoming events. And actually, I will post it on our website. Some of you who have gone will notice that we have a new website. It's not an objet d'art. It was created by Alin and Alexandra and myself in the wee hours of the night over the last 3 months. But it does have a page for coming events. So I will make sure to get all of our events up there listed, unless there's someone here who loves to manage websites who would like to step up and take that over from me. It's not my area of expertise, but I will work on that. Any comments or information from our peanut gallery out there that we can't see? Participants, the 9 of you, anybody have anything to add? We could open up the chat.
Oh, look at that. Oh, bounce.
Someone had a pool noodle comment. Creative solution, I think is what they
Well,
said.
that's all everything. Oh, that's all our messages there. Okay, nothing interesting.
All right, well,
Okay.
shall I?
It's just the coffee pot.
Does anybody have a car? Can anybody take the coffee urn? We own the coffee urn.
How big is it?
I have a car.
Just wants to.
Hold it until, in case we need it for something. I don't,
I have my card. I just.
So I can.
Do you want me to leave it at Bearing so that we can,
I'm okay with that.
for our
Yeah.
next
Yeah,
event?
that'd be good. Are you down by car today?
Yeah, I can bring my truck, so.
That's terrific. Thanks, Renee. Yeah, that'd be good.
Unless you guys want to keep it, I just, if we have it set up for a new event, I'm not gonna remember to go get it from someone and just sit around. Perfect, puppy emergency.
And if anybody's interested in joining the organizing committee, that is those of you who are not already on it, we are in dire need of help. Oh,
Hey, someone's son works in that building. And I can G. That's all I can read. Oh, maybe the, yeah, get things to him. If you can't manage.
Oh, from here.
Oh, great.
Thanks, Dan.
We should just give them a list of fake things to look for.
thanks, Dale.